Hi, everyone. Welcome to this Using SEIS for Data Analysis workshop. My name is Lawrence, and we'll start in a couple minutes for everyone to join and sign in. Now, everyone, if you haven't already, please click on the link in the slides or this link you see in my shared screen to sign in. If you already signed in before today, there's no need to sign in. Okay, we will begin. This session will be recorded. And this is the sign-in screen. If you haven't signed in already, please access the link and sign in. If you already signed in before today, there's no need to sign in again. This is information for getting paid for PD. I believe this information might have been already known to you. If not, you can feel free to take a look. Right. Welcome to the Using SEIS for generating data analysis and reports. My name is Lawrence. I'm a data analyst for special education. I've been working this role for 6 years, and I use SEIS on a daily basis. And I also have been an SFUSD student since kindergarten to high school graduation. Yeah, in today's workshop, we'll be going over 2 main reports. And this workshop's especially useful for site administrators or providers. Let's say you're a special education teacher and you want to know your students' triennial dates or the date of next evaluation. And this report will give you detailed information on many data points. I have a quick question. Does anyone who does not have a SEIS account, please let me know, because this will be a live session later where we will go over using the SEIS searches, and you need a SEIS account to do so. Right. Okay, I did not get any response. Looks like everyone has a SEIS account. See your chat. Okay, great. Okay, Sandra, got your message. Okay, if you're familiar with SEIS, that's great. Once you get your SEIS account, you will be able to review this session. This session is recorded and will be uploaded, I believe, on YouTube later on.
Are paras allowed to have a SEIS account?
That I am not clear. My understanding is I do not believe so, but I'm not exactly sure for the my answer to that question. But my understanding is paras do not have a SEIS account. Okay. So SEIS reports are very useful because it lets you see your students' detailed data, like for example, what kind of services are they getting, when is their next evaluation date, when's their upcoming IEP, whether the IEP has already been consented or not. And there's many different variations of this. Okay, so we'll be going over briefly about the two main types of SEIS reports. So the first type is called the current services report, and this is more geared towards providers like your special education teacher, your psychologist, you're a occupational therapist, or a speech language pathologist. And this is useful because this tells you in detail what kind of services your students are receiving and at what level. For example, are they getting 50 minutes a week daily, whether it's 120 minutes a month, once a month? Who's providing that service? If it's the district, or is it the non-public agency, and so forth. If anyone asks you questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. Or if there's anything else you want me to repeat or clarify. Okay. So later on, we'll be doing a hands-on area on this report. And when you download the report in the spreadsheet, this is the example of the current services report. So you can see the columns, and the highlighted yellow are the service dates and information that they are the main areas we'll be looking at. So for example, in column E, you could see that the student is receiving specialized academic instruction. And you see the service dates over here in column H and I, and also at what frequency in the total service minutes in the column Q over here. So we say, for example, 90 minutes daily, and it takes place in column S in the regular classroom. Any questions or anything I need to clarify? And the second type of report is called the student report. This is generally more geared towards for site administrators, but providers can use this as well. And it's also very useful for providers. So in student report, it doesn't list the actual services students are receiving, but it lists other information such as what is the student's eligibility and disability, what is the student's special education pathway, and information such as the student's ID, demographic data such as the student's race, if that's needed. Yeah, and as well as the student's school of attendance. Any questions? Anything you want me to clarify? Feel free to unmute yourself. And here's an example of a student report when you download it into a spreadsheet. And you can see that this is the default fields for the most part. And you can see in column E who is the case manager, and column F shows the student school of attendance. And as well the students' disabilities in columns I and J. Does anyone have any questions before we move on? Okay, so there's some important nuances that I want to go over. So whenever we do any polling report from SEIS, they are referenced with the future IEP, not the current IEP. The reason why is that's the way SEIS is built. And so you need to be very careful of that. So it's from the future IEP. So if a student already held a current IEP and someone edits the future IEP, it might be different information from the current IEP. So you need to be aware of that. And the second point is information such as the student's grade and school, they're updated nightly, but only for students who are already deemed eligible for special education. For example, if a student is pending assessment, the student's school and grade will not be updated until someone manually updates that. So that's also an important point to be aware of. And lastly, we'll go over this in more detail. You could actually save a search as a template, so you don't need to keep adding the data points that you want to look for. You could save it as a template, but when you make changes to that save, it's automatically saved. So that's the third bullet point mentioned here on this slide. Does anyone have any questions or anything you want me to clarify?
I have a question about the updates and the data being pulled from the future IEP.
Yes.
Unfortunately, sometimes it takes case managers a while before they affirm an IEP.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if this data is being pulled from, well, sorry, I'm rusty. If it's in the future, then it's not affirmed. Correct?
My understanding is once it's affirmed, I believe it becomes the current IEP.
Current. So, okay, so this could be pulling from an IEP that is not yet affirmed.
Yes, whatever's in the future
Got
IEP. So for example, if the IEP is affirmed, then the future IEP will be based on the affirmed IEP as long as there's no changes made in the future IEP.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, that was it. Thank you. I was just processing that.
No worries. Yeah, this is a little bit confusing. It took me a little bit while to understand this too, because I also thought it'd be from current IEP, but it's actually future.
No.
So.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have any questions or anything else you want me to clarify? All right, and here's a slide. You can actually download this PDF for this entire presentation. So these are links to the steps that we can go over later very soon. So after this workshop, you can click on those links and review the step-by-step instructions that we went over. Okay, so we're about to do a live session. If you do not have a SEIS account, that is okay. I believe some teachers or providers, they're new to the district and the district's still attempting to generate their SFUSD emails. But later on, you can rewatch this workshop session once the Digital District Day team uploads these workshops online. Okay, so I'm going to switch screens to my SEIS page. So if everyone, you can log into SEIS. The link is, let me see. The link should be in, let me see. Here. I'm trying to log out. Okay. So the website is called sais.org/login. So if everyone, if you have a SEIS account, please log in so we can do a live demonstration. Okay, I'm logging into my demonstration account. Does anyone have any issues logging in? Please unmute yourself and feel free to ask. All right. Okay, so once you log in, you're going to be in your home page, and this is the dashboard, which I will briefly mention. I believe a separate workshop earlier today regarding utilizing this dashboard. So in this dashboard, you can see the students in your caseload. For example, I have 28 over here. This has 28 unaffirmed IEPs. So this is telling me that I have 28 students in my caseload that do not have an unaffirmed IEP. And you could also see, for example, in this area called meeting alerts over here, I have, for example, 112 students that are past due for a eligibility evaluation. So this dashboard is really helpful, but it doesn't give you in-depth detail of like which exactly students yet, unless you click on the link, but there's another method which we will go over right now. Okay, so in order to do SEIS querying, what you do is once you log into the home page, you go to searches over here, the second drop down from the left. So you click on searches and then click on new search. We have the very first item. Does anyone want me to repeat those steps again? Feel free to unmute yourself. I'll have a question. Austin is your new teacher. My understanding is the SEIS team will be creating the SEIS accounts. Perhaps it's not created yet as of right now, but you should be receiving them before the first day of school. Okay, so once I log in my search page, this is the default screen, which as always has these data points. So for example, let's say I'm a site administrator and I want to see the list of students on my site. So I could look for different information. So the first thing I would do is I would click on column options over here. Left click on that. And it shows me the type of report. So we have student report over here, which is what we have in mind. But if you left click on it, you can see the different types of reports you can generate. So for example, if you want to see the student services, you would click on current service report, which we will go over after this student report. And you can also look for ESY service reports as well. But for this current step in demonstration, we'll be going over the student report. And you can see over here it says select columns report. So these are the data points that you want to look for. And you have to type in the data points you have in mind. So for example, along with the student's date of birth, their case manager, and your current school attendance, perhaps I want to know the student's grade. So what I do is I left click in this area over here and select columns report. I left click, and this is where you type in, or you could also scroll up and down to find the exact information looking for. But generally it's easier to type. So if I want a student's grade, I type in grade. And I select a grade level. Just left click on that. And here's grade level. And perhaps I want to know the student's disabilities. So I type in disability. So disability 1 and disability 2. Does anyone have any questions or want me to repeat anything? Feel free to unmute yourself. Right. So once I have the desired data points, so for example, I want to grade the primary and secondary disabilities. So once I have the data points I want, I click on OK over here on the bottom right. And the search will reload. And once it's reloaded, if I scroll to the right, you can see this is where the data points we asked for is displayed. So if I scroll down, you could see the students' grades and their primary and secondary disabilities. Okay. So we just went over column options. But so let's say, for example, I want only students who are in a specific grade displayed in this report. I don't need to see everyone. So if you're familiar with spreadsheets, it's called the filter. So in SEIS, the filter is called the criteria, which is on the upper right-hand panel over here. So for example, I want to see only students in, let's say, 11th grade, for example. So what I do is add a new filter. And I do that by clicking on add over here and the right-hand side over here. I left click on add. And then it'll ask me, what kind of filter am I looking for? So I want to filter by grade. So I click on this drop down, select one over here, and I type in grade. Sort by grade level. I left click on grade level. And then it'll ask you what grade level are the student in. So I would type in 11th grade, or you can select the drop down. I hit 11th grade. And then I click on search once I have 11th grade in the filter. And reload. So now the screen only shows me students who are only in the 11th grade. You can see over here in this column. Does anyone have any questions or anything you want me to repeat? The filter also has a very neat feature, which is, for example, you can see exclude criteria over here. That means instead of looking for students only in 11th grade, I'm going to do the opposite. I want students that are not in 11th grade and display every other student. So if I left click on exclude criteria, I hit that checkbox, and then I hit search again. Now it shows me the report for all students that are not in 11th grade. So it's like a negative filter. Does anyone have any questions or anything you want me to repeat?
I have a question about the student report search.
Sure.
First one you showed us with column options. For my site, I wanted to add services, but there were quite a few different service choices. And I didn't really recognize where I would choose SAI service. I'm wondering if you could show us those. So I started to just type in service. And there were quite a few different options, but I didn't see SAI.
Yeah, it takes some time to get used to, but we will go over your question in the very next step, which is this is right now it's a student report. I'll answer your question during the current services report.
Oh, great. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so you also have an option to download your search, your query into a spreadsheet. And in order to do that, you go to this drop down over here, and you generally say print. So instead of printing, we want to download. So you left click on this print drop down over here. And select download data. And then left click on go. And depending on your computer, whether it's a Mac or a laptop or a PC, you need to find out where it was downloaded to. And for my case, when I hit download, it pops up immediately into an Excel spreadsheet, and I can share how my spreadsheet looks like. So this is the SEIS search that we went over at first, but now in the spreadsheet format. So you can use this spreadsheet and do more in-depth analysis or information filtering. So for example, if I want to receive information such as by specific disability, I can use the filter in Excel. So I select everything and I go to data over here. For your spreadsheet in Excel might look a little bit different depending on your version. But for mine, it's under data, and I use this filter tool over here, this funnel button. And you can see these drop downs up here. These are the filter buttons. And so, for example, I want to filter for students at my site that only have emotional disturbance. So I left click on this drop down over here, and I uncheck everything by unchecking select all and selecting only emotional disturbance. And I hit OK. And now I see only students of the primary disability with emotional disturbance. Does anyone have any questions or anything you want me to repeat? Feel free to unmute yourself.
Is there any way to see if a service is being, like, if a service provider, if kids are getting their minutes? Like, for example, if I hear a student isn't getting ERMs, can I go and check all of our students that aren't not receiving their ERMs minutes but should be?
That is actually in a report called Service Tracker. But from my understanding, ERMs is actually tracked elsewhere. It is tracked using Paradigm, which the psychologists who provide ERM services use. But for other services, it's under Service Tracker, which is actually a separate workshop happening right now, not in this workshop. But you can access that workshop and view the recorded session once they upload it.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have extra, if you have extra time, I can briefly show you like where to access that information.
I can take the workshop on Monday, probably.
Okay, sure. All right. Okay, I'm going to head back to my SEIS page. Okay. Does anyone have any questions or anything you want me to repeat about generating the student reports? Okay. All right. So next we'll go over the services report. And this report is very useful to see what kind of services students are supposed to be receiving based on their IEP. So in order to access that, you go to search again. So I'll pretend that I just logged in. I'm in my home page right now. And I go to searches over here. In the second from the left drop down. And then I hit new search. And by default, when you click on searches, it'll take you to student reports. But if you want service report, you have to go to column options over here. Click on that. And then under type of report, you click on current service report. Select current service report. And then you could do the same thing we did earlier. You could type in the kind of information you want. For example, you want students primary disability. So I would type in disability. And primary disability in SEIS is called disability 1. And secondary is called disability 2. And once you have desired data points, you hit OK. And you could see that this page refreshed with the current services. So these students have specialized academic instruction, but there's actually students of all services. So again, earlier we went over filtering under criteria. So for example, I want to see only students who receive specialized academic instruction. So what I do is I create a new filter by clicking on Add over here. I click on Add. And then I select the type of service. I click on type in service. And it's under service code. And I select for the specialized academic instruction, and the service code is 330. But I can also type in specialized academic instruction. You see it's right here. And once I have that filter, I click on search. And now SEIS, the screen displays only students with specialized academic instruction. And you do multiple searches. You could do not just only special academic instruction, you could also type in another type of service. So for example, I might look for occupational therapy. So I click on occupational therapy. So now the SEIS will show me students who receive only both services. And I click on search. And it'll refresh that to have students who receive SAI and also occupational therapy. Does anyone have any questions or anything you want me to repeat or clarify? Feel free to unmute yourself. Okay, so the next thing I want to go over is saving a search. So for example, I might be a provider which provide only specialized academic instruction. So I don't need to be, every time I do this search, I'll be clicking on the same thing over and over again. You can save this search as a template. So for example, I'm going to filter for only specialized academic instruction. And to save this template, you click on this save icon over here, save search, this floppy disk icon. So I left click on the save search icon. And I'll ask you to give the search a name. So I would, for example, type in SAI save search. And it's optional to select a category. And you could put in comments if desired. So once I name my save search, I click on save. And to access your saved searches, you go to the searches bar over here on the top left click on that. And then you go to my custom searches and then pan over to uncategorized searches, or it might be named something else in your SEIS account. And here it is. You can see the search we just did, SAI save search. And I left click on that and reload. And so you can see all the information that we selected at first, the primary and secondary disabilities, the filter by service code is all saved intact. So you don't need to every time go to column options again, type in the data points, and then filter again. You could just save as a search template, and you could reload it to get a new fresh report every time. But there is a little nuance with saved searches in SEIS. That is, every time you make a change, it's going to resave it automatically, which to me is very annoying, but that's the way SEIS is built. So for example, in column options, let's say I type in the students grade, for example, grade level, and I hit OK. And you could see that it now displays the student grade level. And even though I'm not going to click on the save icon over here, if I reload this template, so go to searches on the top left over here, custom searches, and then I reload this SEI save search. It's going to reload again. And you can see at first we put grade level. So even though I did not hit the save icon, it automatically saved any changes you made. So this is, you need to be aware of this, that any changes you made is going to be automatically overwritten. So in this case, I have to uncheck grade level and then rerun the report again in order to have my previous save template intact.
I have a question about new students coming, say, into a class or a school.
Mhm.
When you pull up that save search and run it, is it going to include new students if they're in SEIS, assuming they're in SEIS?
Yes, it will include new students as long as it's actually in your caseload. So if Rebecca, may I ask, are you a provider or are you a site administrator?
I'm a teacher, but also a liaison, so I can access the whole program.
Okay, so I'll probably answer both sides as a provider and also as a site administrator to provide clarity for others as well. So for example, if there's a new student, let's say you're at a specific school. I'm going to use Lincoln High School, for example. So if there's a new student that is found eligible for special education at Lincoln High School and you're a special ed teacher, that student, in order to be, needs to be in your caseload in order to be seen in your searches. So if the student is not in your caseload and you're a provider, you're a teacher or a psychologist or a occupational therapist, the student needs to be in your caseload in order to show up in your searches. Your searches as a provider only show students in your caseload. But if you're a site administrator, which you have access to all students in your site, once the student is, whether they're eligible for special education or not, once the student is in your site, it will be automatically shown in your searches. So that's a good question, Rebecca. I'm glad you asked that question.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions or anything you want me to repeat? We have some time remaining, about 20 minutes, but I can go in depth about the save searches as well. So you can see if you scroll to the bottom a little bit more, you see option criteria. These are additional pre-made search filters. And this is generally for site administrators. So this is a little bit more in depth. So this looks like it's for private school, students who serve in districts, but not in the district of geographical residence. And as again, you can access your save searches from here as well. So here's the SEI save search we did earlier. And there's also searches where you could share to others as well. So if anyone should share any searches, it will be displayed under here, under shared searches. So in order to share a search, you set up your template as we did earlier. So for example, I want to share this SEI save search. The share button is over here in the top right. Over here, save and share search, and I left click on that. And you can feel free to select a category and add in any comments. And I hit save and share. So now in searches, and I go to shared searches, it is now, oh, how comes that display? Doesn't work. Let me refresh my page. Ah, that's interesting. It's not working. It should display under shared searches. I think it's because I'm using this demonstration account. It's probably not letting me do shared searches that I made at first. But if you make it from your own account, you should be able to see in shared searches. So this is useful for sharing searches. Let's say you're a site administrator and you want to share to all the special ed teachers at your school site a specific template. This will be useful when you share searches. Does anyone have any questions, or do you want to do any in-depth searching? Feel free to ask away.
I have a question.
Sure.
What if I just want to search like who's oh, I guess it's just on the front page. But like if I wanted to put together a spreadsheet, I get that of like backdated IEPs and services, things that are out of compliance.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's not a fun topic, but that's what I want to do. So that I can be, I mean, that's really where I'm at. So that's
Oh yeah, we need to do that. It's I also help out with the CD audit, which is new thing CDE. You probably got an email from me last school year, about a few months ago. That was coming from me, so it's related to your question. So since we have extra time, I'll go over what you asked for, Elena. So it's in the dashboard. So I will go back to my dashboard. And so, for example, let's see, it's all in here. So if I go for students who have their next eligibility to triennial is already overdue. So triennial in SEIS is called eligibility evaluation, their next eligibility evaluation. So if I left click on this orange past due, it'll show me the students who are past due. And it'll show you the date the students that are supposed to have their triennials. And you can see this Excel button over here. This will be left click over here and you'll download it as a spreadsheet. And it'll show the exact same information, but in a spreadsheet format. So this is very useful, and I encourage everyone to take a look at the dashboard when they get the chance. Does this answer your question, Elena?
Yeah, I hadn't looked at those closely and thought about how to use them. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'm gonna go back to new search. I'll briefly go over the other type of searches. So we wanted the main searches, the student report and the services. So I'll do a demonstration on, for example, the ESY. So in SEIS, the current service report only shows services during the regular school. So if you want to see services taking place during ESY, you go to ESY service report. So under column options and under type of report, you look for ESY service report. And you type in any column options that you desire. So for example, I want to go for primary and secondary disability again. I type in disability 1 and disability 2. And I hit OK. And wait for it to load. So now I only see services that take place during ESY. And another thing I want to add is in the SEIS search result page over here, you can also actually sort. So for example, I want to see the students' start date from the oldest start date to the newest. So if I just simply left click on it, it'll automatically sort the columns. So it's loading again. Okay, so these are blanks. And I left click again to show me the, so it looks like this is now from newest to oldest. So you could do the same for names, alphabetical order. You could just simply left click on that. So right now it's not in alphabetical order, and I want the student's name to show by first name alphabetical order. I left click on first name. And now you can see the first name is sorted by alphabetical order. Does anyone have any questions or anything you want me to go over? Or does anyone have, for example, after this workshop's over, you might want to run a report on your own. So if you have any, you might want a demonstration, feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. Let me go back to my slide deck. So you can see in the slide deck, this is the same information we went over. So you click on searches in the red circle over here, and under column options, you select your column options, which are these are called the column options over here in the column. And criteria is a filter. They should really rename it filter, what they call it criteria instead. And these are the more in-depth details. So this is where you do this page, this screenshot over here shows you the type of report you want to run. So at first we ran over student report, current service report, and the ESY service report. And this page shows you how to download the data into a spreadsheet, usually Excel. And this slide shows you how to filter in a spreadsheet in Excel, which we went over earlier. This one's showing the same thing, but this time it's doing a student report under column options. And let's go over the same steps again to download your search into an Excel format. And again, filtering. All right. Does anyone have any questions? This will conclude the workshop. All right, thanks for joining, everyone. If you can, please click on this link to do a feedback for this workshop. And I hope everyone found this workshop useful, and I thank you everyone for joining. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lawrence. Hey, will you put the link in for the presentation in the chat one more time?
Sure. It's actually under the downloads in the session page in the Zoom link.
Oh, okay.
The district day. Yeah, they have it for every single workshop. But I can actually, let me try sharing this slide for everyone. I do have a link. I'll do it right now. That's probably more convenient.
Okay.
Just a moment. Okay, I'll stop sharing my screen. Okay, I'm gonna put it in the chat box. Okay, I just placed the link to the slides in the chat box.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, does anyone have any questions or clarifications? Feel free to ask. Otherwise, this workshop will be closed and conclude the session. Right, okay, no further questions. Okay, thank you for joining, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.